Around the end of the Iron Age in the Near East, the mighty Assyrian Empire was brought down by the Babylonians, who were ruled at the time by King Nabopolassar. This took place in the late 7th century BC. As a direct consequence of this, the Babylonians rose to become the preeminent force in the area. Welcome to the Royalty Stories channel. Although Nabopolassar was the one who founded the neo-Babylonian Empire, it was his son, Nebuchadnezzar II, who was successful in expanding the new empire and restoring Babylon to the glory it had when it was first founded. 1,000 years had gone since the previous time Babylon rose to conquer Mesopotamia prior to the reign of Hammurabi. Mesopotamia was now under the rule of Hammurabi. This was the very first time that anything like this had taken place. Because of the manner in which he was represented in the scriptures, Nebuchadnezzar eventually came to be seen as an adversary who was cruel and tyrannical against the Jewish people. Around the year 642 BC is when Nebuchadnezzar II, who was the eldest son of King Nabopolassar, was born. It is thought that he inherited the name of his grandfather, who held the position of governor in the city of Uruk during the reign of King Ashurbanipal. During that time, King Nabopolassar exercised his authority over Babylon. The old Akkadian name for Nebuchadnezzar was Nabu-Kadori-Ur, which may be translated to mean, "O Nabu, defend my firstborn son." Nebuchadnezzar was a great king who ruled over Babylon. It was from this moniker that Nebuchadnezzar derived his own name. In Mesopotamia, Nabu was worshipped as the god of scribes, literacy, and knowledge. By the first millennium BC, it was revealed that Nabu was the son of Marduk, the most powerful god in the Babylonian pantheon. This revelation led to a rise in Nabu's popularity. During this time period, Nabu rose to a position of tremendous prominence. In the year 609 BC, while he was still the crown prince of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar took part in the battle that his father was waging to capture the city of Haran. Haran was the area where the last remaining soldiers of the last Assyrian ruler, Ashur-uballit II, had been gathered. The Battle of Haran was eventually responsible for bringing the Neo-Assyrian Empire to its knees and bringing an end to its existence. Following that, Nebuchadnezzar was given a promotion and began sharing the leadership duties of the troops with his father. Together, they were known as Belshazzar the Great. In the year 607 BC, the two of them collaborated to lead an army into a mountainous region that was located to the north of Assyria. Even after his father had returned to Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar maintained his position as sole supervisor of all activities. He held the position of commander-in-chief and was successful in achieving crucial victories that contributed to the consolidation of Babylon's position as the new powerhouse in the region. In an effort to resurrect the once mighty Neo-Assyrian Empire, which had recently succumbed to collapse, the Egyptian pharaoh of the time, Necho II, led a massive army into former Assyrian provinces and established a center of operations in the city of Carchemish. This was done in an effort to resurrect the empire. In the Battle of Carchemish, which took place in the year 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar fought in battle with Necho and his army. There, he dealt the Egyptians a devastating defeat. The story of Nebuchadnezzar's victory over the Egyptians at Carchemish is recounted in a number of following works, including the Book of Jeremiah and the Book of Kings in the Hebrew Bible. Both of these books are part of the Hebrew Bible. This win will forever be remembered as a defining moment in history. With the death of King Nabopolassar in July of 605 BC, Nebuchadnezzar made a hasty return to Babylon in order to stake his claim to the throne before his younger brother Nabu-shum-lishir could seize it. From this point on, Nabu-shum-lishir is never mentioned again in any other sources. leading historians to deduce that he most likely attempted an unsuccessful uprising that resulted in his death. In his first speech as king, Nebuchadnezzar addressed the god of Babylon, Marduk, and said, "O merciful Marduk, may the house that I have built endure forever. May I be satiated with its splendor, attain old age therein, with abundant offspring, and receive therein tribute of the kings of all regions, from all mankind." Marduk is the patron god of Babylon. Once Nebuchadnezzar was crowned king, he delivered his first speech to the people and directly addressed the deity. After attending the burial for his father, Nebuchadnezzar rushed right back to the battlefield in Syria to continue expanding what was now his empire as soon as he returned from the funeral. In the year 604 BC, Nebuchadnezzar and the army under his command conquered the city of Ashkelon, which was located in the Levant. After doing this, they captured the city's leader, looted its assets, and then razed the city to the ground. Other kingdoms, such as the Kingdom of Judah, gave up their sovereignty to the growing Babylonian Empire during the course of the next 3 years. This occurred during the time period. Moreover, the expansion of the empire into Palestine was accomplished with the help of Greek mercenaries. All progress that had been made before to Nebuchadnezzar's decision to march against Egypt in 601 BC came to an abrupt halt when the king of Babylon made the decision to do so. In spite of the Egyptians' success in the Battle of Carchemish, the planned invasion of Egypt was an unmitigated disaster. The Egyptians were victors at the fight. The setback eventually led to a loss of confidence on the part of the Babylonians, despite the fact that there were substantial numbers of casualties on both sides of the conflict. The vassal nations that were controlled by Babylon started to distrust the might of their rulers and began to refer to the new empire as a paper tiger. At Babylon, the people who were Nebuchadnezzar's subjects began to reject his direct orders, and some of them even planned rebellions against the king. In the year 599 BC, Nebuchadnezzar made a strategic decision to redirect his attention away from Egypt and toward the Levant. After that, he led his army into the desert of Syria, where they fought Arabs and pillaged their towns along the way. After that, they left Syria. When an additional year had passed, the Babylonians launched a successful attack on the Kingdom of Judah and were able to successfully seize possession of the city of Jerusalem. The king of Judah, Jehoiakim, rejected Nebuchadnezzar's rule in the hope that Egypt would come to his assistance. The suffering that Jehoiakim went through was a direct result of this, and it was severe. Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, died away while the city was under siege, and his uncle Zedekiah was subsequently installed by Nebuchadnezzar as the new king of Judah after his death. Following this, more military campaigns were sent into the Levant area. One of these campaigns was successful, and it led to the capture of the Phoenician city of Tyre. The Babylonian army proceeded to march throughout the region, destroying devastation everywhere they went and leaving a trail of ruin in their wake as they did so. Nebuchadnezzar was able to expand his dominion in every direction because he was successful in capturing total control of all of Mesopotamia's commercial routes. The warrior king was resolute in his quest of expansion because he was under the notion that Marduk had given upon him the right to rule over the whole globe. As a result, he was unwilling to accept anything less than a global monarchy. After an unsuccessful invasion of Egypt in 589 BC, King Zedekiah of Judah organized a rebellion against Nebuchadnezzar. The revolt was successful. Zedekiah did not pay the tribute that Nebuchadnezzar demanded of him. This led to the defining moment of Nebuchadnezzar's reign, which was the utter destruction of the city of Jerusalem, including the temple that Solomon had constructed. This was the culmination of the events that led up to this point. The complete and total destruction of Jerusalem was the last straw that caused the kingdom of Judah to collapse under its own weight. It is believed that as many as 20,000 Judeans, who together made up around 25% of Jerusalem's total population at the period, were taken prisoner and sent to Babylon. Deporting the people who lived in the towns that the Assyrians conquered was a common tactic that the Assyrians used often throughout the time that they held control and were the dominant force in the region. When both the Temple of Solomon and the people of Israel were carried off to exile in Babylon, it was thought that this fulfilled prophecies that had been written in the Bible. The Israelites began their transition during this time from the polytheistic views of Yahwism to the monotheistic beliefs of Judaism, which was a direct result of these events, which led to the strengthening of Judaic religious ideas. This shift was a direct result of these events, which led to the strengthening of Judaic religious ideas. Yahweh, the God of the Hebrews, was said to be united at the hip with the goddess Asherah, who served as Yahweh's wife in Yahwism. Yahweh was said to reign over the pantheon of various gods, which was led by Yahweh. Baal, Uruk, Mo, and Astarte were some of the gods and goddesses who were featured on the second tier. Every one of these gods had its very own set of priests and prophets who were devoted to serving them. It was ultimately written in the Hebrew Bible that Nebuchadnezzar was the destroyer of countries, in addition to being described as a dictator who was cruel and mad, and who was sent by God to punish the Israelites for their countless sins. The iconic picture of Nebuchadnezzar by the English painter William Blake from the 18th century as a mad king is based on the harsh description of the monarch that can be found in the Book of Daniel, which reads, "He was driven away from humanity and ate grass like the cow. When his whole body was doused in the dew of heaven, his hair grew in such a manner that it resembled the feathers of an eagle, and his nails grew in such a way that they resembled the claws of a bird. His nails were also shaped like bird claws." On the other side, sources from Babylonia describe the reign of Nebuchadnezzar as a golden age that lifted Babylonia to the position of the world's most powerful kingdom at that time. This boosted Babylonia to the status of the world's most powerful kingdom at that time. In addition to his many other achievements, Nebuchadnezzar was successful in completing and expanding the fortifications that had been started by his father, building a large moat and outer defense wall, constructing canals, paving the processional way with limestone, and renovating the city's temples. The creation of canals was another one of Nebuchadnezzar's many accomplishments. By the direction of the king, the beautiful Ishtar Gate, which led into the heart of the city, was surrounded with blue tiles, and it was ornamented with depictions of animals that symbolized gods. This gate was located at the entrance to the city's central plaza. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, the faithful prince who was appointed by the will of Marduk, the highest of princely princes, beloved of Nabu, of prudent counsel, who has learned to embrace wisdom, who fathomed their divine being and reveres their majesty, the untiring governor who is constantly concerned with the well-being of Babylon and Borsippa, the wrathful governor who is constantly concerned with the well-being of Babylon and Borsippa after excavating the base of the gates all the way down to the water table, had pure blue stone carved into the shape of the gates themselves. On the walls of the inner chamber of the gate are carved representations of lions, bulls, and dragons. As a consequence of this, I adorned those walls with dazzling splendor and opulent grandeur so that every person on the planet may stand in awe while looking at them. It was common practice to represent Ishtar, the goddess of love and fertility, with lions in art. Storm god Adad was often represented as a bull in ancient Egyptian art, and the Babylonian god Marduk, who was considered to be the supreme deity, was sometimes portrayed as a dragon. Behind the gigantic bronze gates that defended the city was a temple that was impossibly big, as well as one that had golden statues fashioned of pure gold. The construction that is most well known in relation to Nebuchadnezzar is the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. These gardens are associated with Nebuchadnezzar and are regarded as one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. It is said that King Nebuchadnezzar's wife Amytis of Media suffered from such severe longing for her forested origins that he created exquisite gardens as a method to soothe her. This is a common urban myth. The story goes that the gardens were arranged on a hill and that they had a series of terraces that were supported by pillars made of baked brick and tar. There was greenery growing all over the hillside. The gardens had a width of 400 feet, a length of 400 feet, and a height of 80 feet, as related by the report of a Greek historian by the name of Diodorus Siculus. It is likely that water was carried to the top of the gardens using a water irrigation system that is more conventional given the high elevation of the gardens. The specific location of the Hanging Gardens has remained a mystery up to the present day, and there are some people who are of the opinion that they either existed in a different location or were never really a thing at all. Nebuchadnezzar died dead on October 7, 562 BC at Babylon, the city he had controlled for the preceding 43 years prior to his death there. It was subsequently determined that one of his sons named Amel-Marduk would take his place on the throne of the empire. But, less than 2 years after he took the throne, he would be overthrown and put to death. After being taken over by Cyrus the Great and continuing to exist for just another 20 years, the neo-Babylonian Empire did not last for very long and was finally absorbed by the Achaemenid Empire. This took place in the year 539 BC. Nebuchadnezzar was the most powerful leader in the world when he passed away. At the time of his passing, he was also the most powerful. He was the ruler of the neo-Babylonian Empire for the greatest amount of time and earned the distinction of longest reigning king in the history of the empire. By virtue of his tremendous military prowess and remarkable architectural accomplishments, Nebuchadnezzar ensured his position in history as one of the most prominent leaders of the ancient world. This helped him earn his place in the annals of history. Consider giving it a like, posting a comment on it, subscribing to the channel, and clicking the bell icon if you want to see more videos just like this one. In addition, we would like to request that you give some serious consideration to becoming a member of Royalty Stories so that you may participate in the creation of next episodes. Thank you for watching.